episode 6 um, of many, right? And in this episode 6, we're talking about meeting my new psychiatrist. So I just, started calling around trying to find a new psychiatrist. When I told my therapist I had trouble even scheduling with the psychiatrist that my PCP had referred me to, she said, "Okay, I'll refer you to someone." They weren't available. So I just called up my child's pediatric psychologist, not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. So they do evaluations, but they cannot prescribe medication. They will send over that medical record, or I can request it myself, and I can hand that to my child's doctor, his pediatrician, and then they will um, recommend, based on the diagnosis, the appropriate uh, dosage and medication for the minor child. So I called them up and I said, "Hey, I'm having trouble finding a psychiatrist. Would you please, refer me?" So they referred me to my first psychiatrist, and then I was having issues with that one that I talked about in part 5. And then they said, "Well, I have another one." So I called them up and just couldn't get in. I guess everyone was just not taking new patients at this time. This was about 2 years ago. I went back to my therapist and spoke about that, and she said, "Okay, let's double check if the original psychiatrist that I gave you is accepting new patients. The last I heard, he was coming back and accepting new patients." And I said, "Okay." I called and they said, "Yeah, he's accepting new patients. Let's go ahead and set you up for your new patient appointment, and we'll go ahead and send over the new patient paperwork." And of course, I filled it out. I will do a separate video on new patient paperwork. So important. Once I filled that out, I sent it over right away. And then when I sent it over right away, Um, they said, "Okay, thank you so much. Everything that you needed to send in was completed. Um, here's a reminder of your doctor's appointment, and then please download the app to, grab a hold of all your summary visits and doctor's appointments and the calendar of your doctor's appointments, and it even has your current med list, that you're on, and the dosage and the diagnosis as well. So it's a pretty neat app. And so on my very first appointment, it was really, really very pleasant. I got there early. I checked in. The check-in was 30 seconds. I showed them my ID. They confirmed my appointment. I was, there wasn't a whole bunch of people there waiting. Um, I went in to see the psychiatrist, and I really felt at ease when I looked at him. He just really seemed to me, I had no idea who this man was. I just knew from the uh, research that I found online, of what he had done, what he hadn't done, how long his career was, and how many practices he had in the state. So basically, I knew a little bit about him. But I was really, really more pleased that he has been a psychiatrist for over 30 years, because I really do believe that if you've been doing anything for a long time, you know a few things, right? That's not just restricted to psychiatry. That's anything. I believe you tend to be a little bit of an expert, right? Um, you've seen a few things. You've gone to medical conferences. I hope. And I think at that age, or that length of time that you're practicing, in my opinion, you really don't have anything to prove. You're more so not trying to show how smart you are, and trying to overtalk your clients. You just want to find out what's going on so you can give them the best course of action. At least that's what I have found with physicians who have been practicing for a very long time. My child's pediatrician is has been practicing for about 27 years, and she just seems the very same way, just sort of open, tell me what's going on. Okay, great. And one thing I love, and also my son's pediatric psychologist as well, and his behavioral therapist. One thing I do love about physicians who have been practicing for a very long time, they really do care about, they want to hear. They believe that they cannot help you if they don't hear you out. I mean, really hear what you're saying, how you're saying it. Um, Taking a note, observing your breathing patterns, while you're doing it, your nonverbal body language. I mean, they really have the ability to take all of this in simultaneously. And it's my opinion, again, it's just my humble opinion, that a new psychiatrist just they don't have the capacity to do those things at one time and diagnose the patient accurately. After all, they are just learning, right? And every now and then when I go to a doctor's visit, they'll say, well, I have a medical student, do you mind? Or resident. And I'll say sure. But there are times where I just don't want to be a guinea pig, and this was one of those times. I was eager to get this show on the road. So I sat down. He said hello. I said hello. And then he said, "So sorry about the wait." And he didn't just say sorry, he started explaining, and I never had a doctor who did that in all of my years. They will maybe say sorry about the wait, maybe. I don't even think I remember a doctor saying that at all. I remember nurses saying that, but not a doctor. And I certainly don't remember a doctor explaining why they were late. So, right off the bat, he respect at least displayed to me, illustrated to me that he respected me and my time, or at least pretended to be, right? And he received at least a cardamom of my respect at that moment. He started asking me. He said, I will never forget it. He said, "How can I help you today?" He didn't say, "What's going on with you?" He said, "How can I help you today?" I mean, he really narrowed it down, today. So I told him that I was having a lot of trouble trying to just get regular menial things that you do every day as a normal routine done. I'm just not able to focus and get it done. And that transitions in different parts of my life, such as work and even being a parent to my child, just organizing events that are going on with his academics, extracurricular activities, and just managing my own emotions and my thoughts in my head, and then not having the uh, emotional intelligence or the patience to take care of him in the way that in a healthy functioning way, because I'm just all over the place. And he started to ask me, give me some examples. And I told him that he wanted to hear about with me and my child first. I said, well, I have emails about events that are going on in school, and I just can't seem to um even get a calendar out and put everything on a calendar and keep up with it. There's this fog in my head. And then he said, "Okay, tell me about work." And I said, "With work, I constantly, um, it takes me a while just to complete one task because there's so many mistakes. I have to go back and fix it over and over and over and over again." And I said, "It's very dangerous for me because to everyone else at work, it seems as if I make no mistakes, but that will, I'm masking, I'm pretending." And then that type of, I don't know, work ethic is displayed as good, but it also breeds grounds for um, being taken advantage of, right? If an employer sees that you're doing well, they just pour more on top of you to do without compensation or respect for your time, consideration, or even permission. So, and that leads to me getting annoyed and then quitting, which leads to unstable income. So you see the pattern here. And then he just shook his head. And then he said, "Talk to me about your daily routine. You were telling me about your daily routine during the day." And I said, "Yeah, I just want to be able to get up and start my day with my beauty ritual. Putting on my moisturizer, flossing, really simple things, putting on, my sunscreen and actually getting up and starting the day and doing things that are part of my beauty ritual that makes me feel good so that when I leave the house, I don't feel self conscious about myself." And he said, "Yes, I see that it is very important. And I see it's very important to you." Absolutely, it is. Heck yeah. So when he said that, when he acknowledged that it wasn't just important for everyone, but he saw that it was important to me. He saw that that was a priority for me. Yes, it is a priority, or when, in my mind, it was a priority. So, and then he asked me about my family history, if there is anyone, and he was just reading from the new patient paperwork. He said, I see here that from your family history, you suspect your mom and dad and uncles and other people in your family had some sort of neurodivergency or mental illness, but they weren't officially diagnosed." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, why do you think that?" And I would tell him of my mother's hot and cold behavior. I would tell him of my uncle's childish behavior living in a an adult body. I would also tell him of my dad's you know what, everyone, I would say my dad is more of a lunatic, but brilliant. And I've heard everyone, even without anyone describing him that way, if I had to describe my dad, I would say he's that way. Brilliant. Favorite subjects are physics and mathematics, kind of like me. My favorite subject is um, chemistry and physics, and a little bit of astronomy, which is bizarre because in college I majored in history because I also fell in love with history. But if I think I should have, it's another story. Majored in the sciences, but um, he was a little bit out there. He was always the person that could solve very complex things. He collected a whole bunch of old TVs and he had them on top of the roof. Like on top of the roof, there was like a veranda on top of the roof that circled the entire home. And he had a whole bunch of TVs on top of there, which was really bizarre. And he would fix them and give them away. I mean, it was really weird. And then he would get simple entry level jobs like being a clerk in a law office or an accounting office. He just never, but he would do math and physics for fun. He had all of these books, laying around. I mean, it was just bizarre. And I just knew that, and I saw him struggle with daily activities like I did. And then there were days he would just fall right into a routine, like it was just second nature. So I told the psychiatrist this, and I told him also that my grandfather and my uncle and my spouse struggled with alcohol addiction, and I believe there's some PTSD along with that, and and my spouse did get diagnosed and is taking medication. But everyone else in my family, it's just me suspecting, right, these symptoms, and recording them and writing them down in my journal. And he said okay, and then he said and I did not tell him about the other psychiatrist because uh, I know from experience you do not want to tell another doctor about what another doctor said or did, because it's really easy for them to just read their notes and basically regurgitate what that other doctor did or said. It's just easier. You're seeing, a lot of patients in one day, and it, it's easy to get lazy. So I knew better not to do that, because I've heard of others firsthand of their experience with that, and then I myself have experienced it as well. So I knew better at 40 years old not to do that. So he said, um, "Are you on any medication?" And I said, "Yes." And I still didn't say, "Hey, I was diagnosed by so and so and they gave me this medication for it," nothing like that. So I said, "Yes, I am on clonidine and buspirone and um, lamotrigine." And then, he's probing everything out of me. Okay, and why were you diagnosed with, something, or why are you taking those? And I said, well, I'm taking clonidine for sleep, lamotrigine for mood, and buspirone for anxiety and panic attacks. And he said, okay, I see here that you were seeing. First, he said, "Are you seeing a psychiatrist now?" And I said, "No." And he said, "I see that you were seeing this other psychiatrist." So when you fill out the new patient paperwork, they do have you fill out a form to get um, records from other um, previous physicians, but I did not fill that out. And so I found out the reason why he had access to my previous records is because some systems that hospitals use are practically the same, and they will, especially if you're in the same state. For instance, if you go to one emergency room and they use the same system, they can see that you went to another ER. They can see your medical record, maybe doctors, maybe not doctors' notes, but they can see certain tests that you have taken, and certain triage notes they can see, but maybe not the doctor's notes. So that's how he knew that well, also, of course, when I told him I was on medication, he knew, but he also knew from the system that he was using. He never asked me why I was leaving. He never asked me anything like that. He just asked me how are those medications working for you, and I said the lamotrigine for mood is good. The buspirone is doing good for the keeping me calm during the day, and then the clonidine does help with the sleep. I increased my dosage because I'm just some days I'm just not able to sleep at all. And so the other psychiatrist did recommend that I increase my dosage. And he said, okay, I'll leave you on those if those are working well for you. And he said, did you want to take any one of those off or having any side effects that you want to tell me about? You want to see if you can try something else? And I said, no, those are fine. And he said, let's talk about these panic attacks. I said, sometimes dealing with my child is whew, stressful is not the right word. And then dealing with people in the emergency room is you need it takes a different kind of animal, to work in that jungle. So I get acute panic attacks. And he said, okay, I will recommend Vistarol for you. And he gave me, I think it was the generic to Vistarol to help with the acute panic attacks. And then he kept me on the buspirone for preventing the anxiety, keeping me calm throughout the day. So I'm not, you know, going crazy. And he said it is long acting Benadryl. That's what he told me. So I like the fact that he told me what it was, right, and what it will do, you know. Um, and then he also said that he said what I'll recommend is Vyvanse for you. And I said, okay. He said this will help um, with the focus. And he said, I'll start you out at 30 milligrams. And he said, let me know, how this works, how it does, and I'll set up a follow up. And then he also said that it may cause some appetite suppressant. Um, but, please let me know how this works since we're introducing this as a new medication in conjunction with your other medications. And I said, okay. And he said, do you have any questions for me? And then I said, yeah. So I asked him, why did he ask me about no, he asked me how many brothers and sisters I had and what my relationship to them were and where I fell among my brothers and sisters, my sequential order. And I told him that I had four brothers and sisters. I am the oldest, and my relationship with them is pretty much non existent. I cut them off. And he said, why? And I said, I have no contact with my two brothers simply because one is, I believe, is a sociopath. He just wants to take, take, take. And the entire family encourages this. So I cut them off too. And they think it's okay for him to take, take, take from me, call me up, request things from me, and they're expecting me to do it. And then when I don't, they want to know why I'm not doing it, as if to, not as if, but pressuring me into doing things for him when he's an adult, a completely functioning adult. So I said, I'm not into the habit of babysitting adults. So he said, okay. And then he said, tell me about your other relationships with your other brothers and sisters. So I told him about my other brother, and I told him that's the same thing. Because he's younger, that pattern is repeating itself. And then I also told him about my younger sister, whom I just love so dearly. She's really, really sweet, but she really doesn't want to do anything with her life. And I, it breaks my heart. I want to help her, and I have tried in the past, but I'm just not able to because one, I have to get my own life together. So I can't help anyone else if I'm not whole. And two, helping her may involve her being living with me, and I don't believe that that is going to be good for either of us. She follows her own rules. She doesn't believe in respecting yours, even though it's your home. So I said that that's probably not going to work. Very, very sweet though. She's not disrespectful at all. She'll tell you one thing and do the other. She'll have you have your neighbors looking at you as crazy because she invited unscrupulous people to your home. That those are the things, kind of things that she would do. And I don't think I could. I don't want to be a part of that. But she's not malicious or anything. She's just a free spirit doing her thing, have no care in the world. She she has no children. um and she's just having fun. So having taking into consideration responsibility and accountability, for herself is not in the cards right now. And so extending that accountability and responsibility to her sister is probably impossible for me to request and expect if she's not doing it for herself. And he said, okay. And then he asked me about my relationship with my other sister. And I said, well, she's definitely a little uh, different. She is opinionated, and it takes a lot of energy to be around her, a lot, and it drains me. And I think that's all I would, because we're very, very, very close. We're not anymore because I've gone no contact, but that's all I will say about that relationship. So those are my two brothers and my two sisters. And yeah, so I asked him, I said, "Why did you ask about what my sequential order was among my brothers and sisters and what my relationship was?" He said, "A lot of times when patients see a psychiatrist, there are other factors that are involved, not just, neurological factors, but there are everyday things that are involved in their lives, stressors, triggers. And those stressors and triggers don't come from inanimate objects, they come from relationships with people, mostly relationships that are in our very close circles. And immediate family is a part of our very close circle." And I said, okay. And I noticed that whenever I told him that I did no contact, that concerned him a lot. And I recently found out, as in 2 days ago, that one psychologist, when he did a particular study, and I'm not going to say his name on this YouTube episode, that the number one cause of suicide was, well, in his patients that he studied with that demographic, was loneliness. And so I see why my psychiatrist, his ears perked up when I told him I, went no contact. And my therapist wanted to know the same thing. She wanted to know if I had any friends, do I have a social life? That was extremely important as well. And so did my PCP. When I fill out the form that you go in every doctor's visit, they ask you, are you having suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, things like that. Are you feeling depressed? They always want to know, do you have a social circle? Do you have someone you can depend on? Do you have any type of friend? That's really, really important. So that now it all makes sense. But once he explained that to me, I just said, okay, thank you.